Next, I would like to welcome up my good friend Manavi. Manavi is 14 years old and goes to Woodhill Middle School. She lives in Andover, Massachusetts, and is an 8th grader. She is very passionate about arts, music, and also dance. Next year, she's going to get a black belt for karate. Please welcome up my good friend Manavi. Good evening, everyone. First of all, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I would like to begin by thanking Patricia for introducing me and for her wonderful speech about AIs. I learned a lot today. Now, I'm sure that all of you listen to some text of music, or maybe you sing or dance or play a musical instrument. There are many different types or genres of music. Do you know some genres of music? Yes?
Jazz,
Mm-hmm.
hip-hop,
Mm-hmm. Any other ones?
Bollywood.
Bollywood, that's right. Those are all some great examples of genres of music. Today, I'm going to be talking about 3 genres of music. I'll be talking about pop, rock, and classical music. So first, let's talk about pop music. Pop music originated in the mid-1950s in the United States and the United Kingdom. Back in the 1960s, pop and rock music are very similar, but over time, they grow increasingly different from each other. Pop music is very eclectic, which means that it derives styles, ideas, and tastes from a wide range of sources. Those sources include rock, Latin, urban, and country music. However, pop does have some common elements. One of those common elements is a short to medium-length song written in a basic verse-chorus structure. Also, they have a common use of repeated choruses, hooks, and melodic tunes. For those of you who don't know what a hook is, it is a short phrase that is used in music to catch the ear of the listener. Now, one very famous pop musician, in my opinion, was Michael Jackson. You've all heard of him, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Michael Jackson was an American singer, songwriter, and dancer. He was born the 8th child of his family. He began his musical career in 1964 with 4 of his elder brothers. They called the band the Jackson 5. Michael Jackson's solo career began in 1971, and by the early 1980s, he was a dominant pop idol in the pop music industry. Some other famous pop musicians are Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Beyonce, and Britney Spears. Now let's talk about rock music. Rock music is a broad genre of music. Its roots come from the 1940s and 1950s rock and roll. Rock and roll drew heavily from the African American genres of blues and rhythm and blues. However, rock also drew from other genres such as jazz, classical, electric blues, and folk. Typically, a rock song is written in a 4/4 time signature for those of you who play music, and it is also written in a verse-chorus structure like pop music usually is. However, rock music has changed dramatically. It is so different now. One very famous rock band were probably the Beatles. Its 4 members were John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. The first 3 members that I just mentioned were the original trio of the band. Ringo Starr joined them in 1964. The band began in 1960 and unfortunately ended in 1970. The band is seen as the foremost and most important band in the history of music. They won 7 Emmy Awards and many, many, many more. They are also the best-selling band. Also, some other rock musicians that you might know are Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, Queen, and Led Zeppelin. You might have heard about the band Queen a lot recently because of the movie The Bohemian Rhapsody that was recently released. It is about Queen. Now, let's talk about classical music. Classical music is also a very big genre, and mainly when we talk about classical music, we're talking about the classical period. There are other periods as well, such as the Baroque period, which came before the classical period, and the Romantic period, which came after the classical period. Beethoven was a composer from the Baroque and classical periods who was part of the transition into the Romantic period. He moved to Vienna when he was 21 and he lived there for the rest of his life. His teacher was Joseph Haydn. Did you know that Beethoven dipped his head in cold water before he started composing? That's weird, right? And no one knows why he did it either. Also, Beethoven's hearing began to deteriorate in his late 20s. In fact, by his last decade, he was almost deaf. How horrible is that? Another fun fact is that Beethoven actually died during a thunderstorm. It's a little cool, right?
Yeah.
Some other famous... Oh, I have a question for you. Why couldn't Beethoven ever find his teacher? Yes?
Because it was hidden in a faraway land.
That's a good guess, but it was because he was Haydn.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Good job.
Also, how was Beethoven buried?
One
He
bone at a
wasn't.
time, right?
It was because he was decomposed.
Oh, God. Lost it.
Some other famous classical musicians were Mozart, Chopin, and Tchaikovsky. I have played a lot of Beethoven's pieces on the piano, and I think that they're very great. So today I talked about 3 genres of music. I've talked about pop, rock, and classical. To me, music is very important. I love singing, I love dancing, and I love listening to music. I play the piano, and in the school band, I play the flute. I'm sure that music is important to all of you too. Many people love listening to music, and if they ever feel stressed, they like to listen to music too. If you ever feel stressed or just unhappy, try listening to music. You might feel a lot better. Music also offers people a lot of opportunities. You can either create music, or as Pradyusha mentioned, you can create an app like Spotify so that other people can listen to music. Music is also a way for people to represent themselves because there's so many different types of music and they're all so different. You can also express yourselves by writing music. Thank you for listening to my speech today, and thank you to the superintendent for coming here.